How good will Oklahoma football be year one under new head coach Brent Venables? Now, Brent Venables is finally a head coach. We've been waiting a lot of years to finally see him get a crack at being a head coach. He's been one of the best defensive minds, probably the best defensive mind in college football for well over a decade. And I'm really excited for what the future of Oklahoma football has in stores with him at the helm at head coach, because they have a really good coaching staff. Your offensive coordinator is Jeff Lebby, who has been the OC for Ole Miss over the last couple of years. Then he also spent time at UCF during 2019. And under his tutelage, those offenses have been really potent, really explosive. Then you bring in Dillion Gabriel from the transfer portal. He ended up missing the majority of last year due to a season-ending injury. I think that he was the best quarterback from the G5 last year prior to the start of the season. I think that he's going to end up being very good. And Oklahoma is kind of being a team that's a little bit overlooked in a sense. Because if you were to ask somebody, hey, who do you think is going to win the Big 12? A lot of people are saying Baylor, Oklahoma State, but a lot of people are sleeping on Oklahoma. Because you got to remember something. The offense has never been the issue for the Sooners, and it's definitely not going to be the issue this year. Even though you do have questions about the offensive line, I think the offensive line should be a little bit more improved in 2022 compared to how it performed the last year in 2021. You have Eric Gray at running back, who had 78 carries for 412 rushing yards and 5.3 yards per carry. He also had 23 receptions for 229 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns as well. So you have a really good do-it-all running back. Then you have a pretty solid group of wide receivers. Marvin Mims is probably the best or one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12 Conference. You got Drake Stoops there, the son of Bob Stoops, Theo Weiss. You got tight end Brandon Willis. So you have a really solid skill position that Dillion Gabriel is going to be throwing the football to. And as I mentioned, this offensive line should be more improved compared to where it was last year. But this defense is going to be really good. And the defense last year, in my opinion, was pretty good. Because remember when the offense was having their struggles with Spencer Rattler at the helm? This defense saved Oklahoma's tails a good amount last year. And a lot of people don't really give this defense the credit that it rightfully deserves for how they performed last year in certain games. Remember when Oklahoma almost got upset by West Virginia? Who won that game? The defense. There were a lot of times when this defense showed up for OU. Now, of course, you think about their game against Texas, and it was a shootout. But there were some games when this defense actually showed up. And the defense has been the biggest Achilles heel for the Sooners over the last couple of years under Lincoln Riley. Now you have a defensive-minded head coach who's going to elevate the performance of this defense. And this is a defense that is super talented on the defensive line. You got Jalen Redmond, Reggie Grimes at linebacker. You have Danny Stutzman. Oh, I love saying that name. Danny Stutzman, man. I got to say it one more time. Stutzman. Then you have Deshaun White, Woody Washington. I mean, this is a really talented defense. This is probably one of the more talented defenses that the Sooners have had in a while. And you look at the Big 12 is up for grabs this year. If you ask somebody that's a non-Oklahoma fan why Oklahoma can't win the Big 12, they say, man, JTD, they got Brent Venables at head coach. And yeah, he is a great defensive mind, but we don't know how good he is as a head coach. I understand that. However, this is somebody who has been around a lot of championship caliber football programs, okay? He spent time with Clemson during the run. He had a run with Oklahoma back when they was winning championships. So this is somebody who knows what it takes to build a championship caliber football team. This is also somebody who has been around some of the best head coaches in the game. And then if you listen to him talk, man, this is somebody who knows how to elevate the morale of his players. This is a player's coach. This is somebody who not only is a great defensive mind, but he knows how to get the best out of his players when it comes to an effort standpoint. When you listen to Brent Venables talk, he makes you want to run through a wall for him. I love the energy that he brings to Norman. So, looking at their schedule to me isn't that easy, but it's not all that tough. You look at UTEP, Kent State, those are wins, okay? Then you have to go on the road to face Nebraska. Now, Nebraska is going to be a tough team this year. There's a good chance that they could maybe end up winning the West in that conference, but I think that that's a game that could go either way. You got Kansas State. They're not going to be a slouch neither. TCU under Sonny Dykes, they're going to be interesting to watch. Then you have Texas. That's going to be the game that everybody's going to have circled, because you're going to have Steve Sarkisian, one of the better offensive minds in college football, versus Brent Venables, one of the better defensive minds in college football, probably the best defensive mind in college football. Who's going to win that game? Oklahoma fans probably have a strong case for why they feel they're going to win, because defense wins championships. But Texas fans probably tell you, man, JT, Oklahoma, we're just a more talented football team than them. Maybe on the offensive side you are, but on the defensive side, I think that Oklahoma is way more talented than what Texas is on the defensive side of the ball. You have Kansas, you should be able to mop the floor with them. And then coming off a bye week, you play Iowa State, Baylor, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech after that, and that's going to be a pretty tough stretch. So for Oklahoma, I think they have a really good shot at being able to win the Big 12 year one under Brent Venables, because this conference really is up for grabs. There isn't really a dominant team in this conference. Because when you look at the SEC, you have Georgia, you have Bama, you know they're going to be there. In the Big 10, you have Ohio State, you know they're going to be there. But in the Big 12, anybody could win this thing. And I don't really see a reason why it can't be Oklahoma, even though they are going into their first year under Brent Venables, and you don't really know how good he's going to be when it comes to managing the clock and late game situations. But with his resume, I think he's more than qualified. And I think that Oklahoma is a little bit underrated. And I think that a lot of people have kind of rolled off Oklahoma because Lincoln Riley left for USC. You don't really know what you're going to get out of Brent Venables. Now, is this team going to be in contention for making it to the college football playoffs? Probably not. It's probably going to take them a while to get to that level. But in terms of what they're going to be able to do this season, I think that they end up going 9-3. I think that the ceiling is 10 wins, and the floor probably has to be 7 wins. But I think that this is a 9-win football team. I love Dillion Gabriel. I watched a lot of him when he was playing for UCF. He has a really good arm. Even though he isn't the biggest, most imposing quarterback, he knows how to maneuver inside the pocket really well. I think that Oklahoma is going to be one of the more underrated teams in college football for this season. So you guys let me know how you guys feel about Oklahoma football going into year one under head coach Brent Venables. I think that Oklahoma is going to be pretty good. I love Jeff Lebby at offensive coordinator. I think it's only a matter of time before he ends up getting his own head coaching job sometimes in the near future, because not only were his offenses really good during his time at Ole Miss, but he also was a large part in Matt Corral's development. And also back in 2019, he was really good when it came to getting the most out of the quarterbacks there. So you have somebody who is a quarterback guru, who knows how to get efficient, effective quarterback play. Him and Dillion Gabriel already have a little bit of a good chemistry there because of their time at UCF together. So I think that this offense, although it may not be as good this season as it has been in the past under Lincoln Riley, I definitely think that this offense isn't going to have a big drop off where they go from being one of the best to being one of the worst. I think they're probably going to be above average. They could end up being really good because Jeff Lebby is a really good offensive mind. But give me your thoughts on Oklahoma Sooners football going into the 2022 college football season. Leave your record predictions down in the comment section down below if you're listening to this on YouTube.